It's late, the house is quiet. You're in bed staring at the ceiling. You did everything you were supposed to do today. Maybe more. You responded to emails, crossed off items on your to-do list, smiled at the right people. You were productive, efficient, polite. And yet, a quiet unease lingers under your ribs. It's not exhaustion. It's not boredom. It's something else. A question, unspoken but pulsing beneath the surface. Am I enough? You don't say it aloud. You don't even fully admit to yourself. But you feel it. In the background of everything. Like a hum you can't tune out. You wonder if everyone else knows what they are doing. If everyone else feels more solid. If their smiles are real. If they wake up with that same heaviness you carry in the pit of your chest. This is a quiet panic. It doesn't shout, it whispers, and it follows you into every room. Some days it looks like ambition. You're chasing something, success, praise, validation, like a dog chasing a cow. But the closer you get, the faster it moves. And when you finally grab it, it disappears. Other days, it looks like paralysis, like staring at a blank screen, unable to begin. Because no matter what you do, it won't be good enough anyway, so why try? It feels like imposter syndrome, waiting to be found out, or perfectionism, trying to earn your place in the world through flawless effort, or people pleasing, twisting yourself into 1,000 shapes to be loved. But underneath every version of it is the same question. Am I enough as I am? Without the mask, without the performance, without the golden stars and the applause. And most of us don't know how to answer. Where did this come from? Where did we learn that our worth must be proven? That rest is laziness. That joy must be earned. That if we are not extraordinary, we are nothing. This isn't just a modern problem, but the modern world feeds it in subtle ways. We scroll through curated lives. We are told to hustle harder, never settle, be your best self. There's always a next level, a next thing to fix, a next reason to believe you're still not quite there. And the panic grows, quietly, silently, but constantly. You may have felt it even as a child, that if you got the grade, or won the prize, or made them proud, you were good. And if you failed, something in you sank. And maybe no one said it outright, but the message was clear. You are what you achieve. You are how others see you. You're only as good as your last performance. So you kept performing, smiling, trying, achieving, perfecting. But the goalposts kept moving. No matter how much you did, it still didn't feel like enough. So late at night, here you are, still running, still performing, still wondering why it's never quiet in your mind. The pain of not feeling enough is not always loud. It doesn't always come with tears. Sometimes it comes with numbness, with hyperproductivity, with always saying yes, with never celebrating your wins because they don't feel like real wins, with jealousy that surprises you, with anxiety that spikes when you stop moving. It's like being on a treadmill that speeds up every minute you take a step forward. And eventually, your legs are shaking, your heart's pounding, but you can't stop because stopping feels like failure, and failure feels like erasure, like vanishing. But here's the quiet truth that no one tells you. The feeling of not being enough doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've learned to survive in a world that profits from your insecurity. It means you're sensitive to signals that say, you must prove yourself. It means you care about doing well, about being seen, about belonging. That's not weakness, that's humanity. But it's time to unlearn the lie. The lie that worth is something you chase. That lie that enoughness is something out there. In the next job, the next compliment, the next flawless day. Because the chase never ends. And in the end, you're left with that same whisper. Still not enough. Unless something changes, unless we pause the chase, unless we go deeper. This video is not a quick fix. There's no 5-step formula here. What we are doing is peeling back the layers of culture, of psychology, of memory, of trauma, of silence. We're tracing the roots of this invisible panic, this low hum of not enoughness that lives in so many of us. We'll explore how it begins, why it sticks, and most importantly, how to begin loosening its grip. Because you weren't born feeling this way, you learned it. And that means you can unlearn it. Not overnight, not with a code on an Instagram, but gently, with insight, with compassion, with time. This is your midnight hour, a sacred space for slowing down, for breathing deeper, and for asking the questions behind the question, what if I already am? You don't remember the exact moment it happened, the moment you began to question your worth. But it was early, before you had the words for it, before you understood shame, before you knew what not good enough even meant. Back then, you were just a child, curious, messy, honest, completely yourself. You didn't worry if your laugh was too loud, or if your belly stuck out in pictures, or if your dreams were unrealistic. You just were. But slowly, piece by piece, you began to notice the rules. Some of us grew up in homes where love was conditional, where affection came when you were good and disappeared when you messed up, where praise was rationed or absent or reserved for achievement. Maybe your parents were doing their best. Maybe they were struggling themselves. But to a child, it doesn't matter. Because children don't analyze, they absorb. They don't say my caregiver is emotionally unavailable. They say there must be something wrong with me. And that belief becomes a blueprint. Maybe you learned to perform, to the golden child, the helper, the overachiever. You cleaned up your messes. You tried to be perfect. You swallowed your sadness because you noticed being too much, too loud, too sensitive, too angry was dangerous. So you shrank or you overcompensated. But either way, you stopped being fully you. You became what they needed you to be. Because love, approval, connection, those were survival. Or maybe you didn't get any attention at all. Maybe you were invisible, neglected, forgotten. Maybe the people who were supposed to protect you were the ones who hurt you. Maybe you grew up in chaos and your nervous system never got to rest. Maybe no one ever asked you, how are you feeling? What do you need? What do you want? And so you stopped asking yourself too. You focused outward, reading the room, reading people, trying to be safe, trying to be good, quiet, useful. Because somewhere deep down, you fear that if you weren't those things, you'd be abandoned or punished, or worse, nothing at all. These early lessons became a story in your mind. If I want to be loved, I need to be successful, be smart, be thin, be funny, be strong, be agreeable, be flawless. The specifics vary, but the root is the same. Who I am is not enough. I have to earn love. And that story, it grows with you. It becomes a script behind every relationship, every job, every silent panic attack in the bathroom stall. This is where it begins, not in adulthood, but in the soft clay of early life. Psychologists call it core beliefs. And one of the most common core beliefs of those who struggle with self-worth is, I'm fundamentally unworthy. Not because they are, but because no one ever taught them otherwise. Because they had to become who others needed them to be, instead of learning how to be themselves. And now, even as adults, they carry that fear like a ghost. If people really knew me, they wouldn't stay. Think about that for a moment. How much of your life has been shaped by that fear? How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How often do you check your phone for validation, scrolling and scrolling, hoping to feel something? How often do you criticize yourself before anyone else gets a chance? That's not because you're weak. It's because your system learned long ago that love had to be earned. That being enough was a moving target. And now, even when no one is watching, that belief lives on as your inner critic, as shame, as the pressure to keep proving yourself. But here's something you may not have heard enough. You weren't born with shame. You were born with wonder. You were born with open hands and wide eyes. The shame was planted. The not enough was taught. And what is taught can be untaught. Not by blaming your parents, not by rewriting the past, but by beginning to see the story clearly. To understand that the panic you feel now is the echo of a younger you, trying to stay safe in a world that felt unpredictable. Your nervous system is still trying to protect you. It's saying, if we can just be perfect, they'll love us. If we can just do more, we'll finally be okay. But the truth is, no amount of external approval can rewrite an internal belief that was carved in childhood. You have to go inward. You have to sit with the younger you, the one who first learned that love was conditional, and say something no one ever said to them. You don't have to earn this. You are already enough. Even if you're messy, even if you fail, even when you feel broken. Because you're not a performance, you are a person. And that's the beginning of healing. Achievement addiction, when success becomes a cage. You've checked off the boxes. You've done the thing, graduated, got the job, hit the milestone. And for a moment, maybe an hour, maybe a day, you feel it. Relief, pride, validation. But then the silence returns. And in that silence, the old question slips back in. What's next? And with it, another voice. Whatever you just did, it's not enough. This is what psychologists sometimes call achievement addiction, the endless chase for more. More titles, more praise, more visibility, more money, more milestones. Not because you're greedy, but because success is the only time you feel safe. When you're achieving, you don't have to feel the anxiety, the self-doubt, the sadness, the stillness. Achievement becomes anesthesia. Each goal is a shot of validation, but the high never lasts. And like any addiction, it starts to control you. Maybe it started small. A gold star on your homework, a compliment from a teacher, a proud smile from your parent. And it felt good, so you did it again. You learned that effort equals approval, that excellence equals love, that being the best meant being worthy. So you pushed, you climbed, you accomplished, and the world applauded. So you kept going, because if they clapped, it must mean you're finally enough, right? But here's the thing. If you only feel worthy when you're winning, you'll never feel worthy when you're simply being. You'll never be able to rest, because rest starts to feel like laziness. Joy feels unearned. Stillness feels dangerous. And soon, you're not chasing success for fulfillment. You're chasing it to escape shame. To outrun that voice in your head whispering, you're only as good as your last win. And worst of all, the more you achieve, the less it satisfies you. Because now, the stakes are higher. You fear slipping, falling, failing. You can't let people see you struggle because they expect excellence. They expect the version of you that never cracks. And that pressure, that becomes a cage. A golden one, but a cage nonetheless. We live in a culture that rewards burnout. We glorify overworking. We equate business with importance. But beneath it all is often something very quiet and very painful. Maybe if I do enough, I'll finally be loved. Maybe if I keep achieving, they'll forget the parts of me that feel unworthy. Maybe if I keep moving, I won't have to feel how empty I am inside. But the truth? Success doesn't heal shame. It just distracts from it. Until one day, something happens. You get the award, the title, the money, and instead of feeling joy, you feel nothing. Because deep down, you weren't chasing a trophy. You were chasing a feeling of being enough. And no amount of external approval can fill that internal void. So, what happens when you stop? When you pause? When you stop trying to earn your worth through constant doing? At first, it's terrifying because you feel restless, guilty, uncertain, because your identity was wrapped around your productivity. Who are you if you're not achieving? Who are you if you're not proving something? That is the part no one talks about. That healing requires grief. You have to mourn the version of you that was built to survive, the one who chased success to feel safe, the one who believed that love was earned through sacrifice. But slowly, gently, you can build something new. You can learn to separate your value from your performance. You can allow yourself to be imperfect, unfinished, unpolished, and still worthy. You can begin to feel joy without earning it. And success? It doesn't disappear. It just stops being your oxygen. It becomes something you choose, not something you chase out of fear. Ask yourself, if no one ever saw your accomplishments, would you still want to do them? If applause was no longer on the table, would you still want to run this race? If you could never be the best, could you still enjoy simply being? The answers might scare you, but they might also free you, because the quiet panic that you're not enough often hides behind impressive achievements. Because your soul isn't interested in performance, it's interested in peace. The comparison trap, social media, and modern mirrors. It starts as something small. You open your phone to check the time, but your thumb slides automatically. Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, scroll, scroll, scroll. You're not looking for anything in particular, but something finds you. A photo, a video, a caption. Someone announcing a success, someone looking flawless, someone doing what you wish you could do, and making it look effortless. And suddenly, your chest tightens. You feel smaller, less accomplished, less attractive, less valid. And there it is again, like a slap in the soul. I am not enough. You know it's a highlight reel. You know it's curated. You know people post their wins, not their wounds. But knowing doesn't protect you from feeling, because your brain doesn't filter reality from illusion. Your nervous system reacts as if it's real, as if you watched someone your age run a marathon, publish a book, buy a house, get married, land a dream job, while you were sitting in pajamas eating cereal at noon. It doesn't matter what you have achieved or how far you have come. The comparison hits like lightning, sudden, sharp, disorienting. This is the modern mirror, not made of glass, but of pixels and filters. And in this mirror, we don't see ourselves clearly. We see ourselves in relation to others, and we always seem to come up short. We weren't designed for this, for comparing ourselves to thousands of people daily, for witnessing everyone's best moments without context, for measuring our self-worth against an algorithm. It's unnatural, but it's become our normal, and over time, it reshapes how we see ourselves, not from the inside out, but from the outside in. You might not even realize it, but the panic creeps in subtly. You find yourself adding filters to your face before posting, measuring your success by likes or views, comparing your timeline to someone else's, feeling behind, feeling invisible, feeling unworthy. And even when you try to resist it, part of you wonders, why do they seem to have it all together and I don't? What's wrong with me? But here's what most people don't talk about. Comparison is often not about jealousy. It's about longing. Longing for what you think that person has. Peace, confidence, belonging, self-trust. But what you are seeing is only the surface. You don't see their panic attacks. You don't see their breakdowns, their therapy sessions, their nights of feeling lost, their own comparison spirals, because everyone is performing. Everyone is posting the version of themselves that feels safest to share. And yet, we compare our inner chaos to the outer curation, and we lose every time. What if you could step away from the mirror? Not forever, just long enough to remember who you are, to see yourself without distortion, to feel your life as it is, not as it appears. What if you could reclaim your self-worth from the algorithm, to ask deeper questions? What do I value? What does success mean to me, not to them? If I wasn't performing for anyone, what would I create? These are the questions that lead you home, away from comparison and back to authenticity. Here's a truth you may need to hear. Someone else's beauty does not diminish yours. Someone else's success is not your failure. Someone else's timeline is not your deadline. And someone else's highlight reel does not invalidate your real life. Your life is not a product, not a performance, not a brand. It is yours. Messy, beautiful, flawed, unfiltered. And that is what makes it real. The next time you scroll and feel that quiet panic rise in your chest, pause. Put the phone down. Put your hand over your heart and whisper to yourself, I'm not behind. I'm not less than. I'm exactly where I need to be. Because your worth was never up for comparison. It was always yours. The perfectionist's curse. You want it to be just right. the email, the outfit, the project, the conversation. You rewrite, you rethink, you rehearse over and over and over again. Because if it's perfect, maybe then you'll feel safe. Maybe then you'll silence the doubt. Maybe then no one will criticize. Maybe then, finally, you'll feel enough. Perfectionism is often mistaken for excellence, but it's not the same. Excellence is fueled by curiosity, joy, growth. Perfectionism is fueled by fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of being seen as inadequate. And underneath all that fear, a fragile belief. If I mess up, I'll lose love. Perfectionism says, make no mistakes, or else. But perfection is a myth, an unreachable mirage. So no matter how hard you work, it's never enough. You meet the goal, but focus on the flaw. You get praise, but obsess over the one criticism. You win, but downplay it. You succeed and still feel like a fraud. It's a cycle of self-cruelty masked as ambition. Maybe you learned it young. Maybe you were only praised when you excelled. Maybe mistakes were punished. Maybe emotions were inconvenient. So you learned to edit yourself, polish, shrink, filter, try harder. Because being flawless felt safer than being real. But here's the curse. Perfectionism doesn't protect you from failure. It protects you from being known. Because perfectionism isn't about doing your best. It's about hiding the parts of you that feel unacceptable. And in that hiding, you become lonely. Not just from others, but from yourself. You might look functional, even impressive, but internally, you're exhausted. Your nervous system is on high alert, always scanning, always editing, always bracing for disappointment. Because if everything isn't perfect, something terrible might happen. People might see your flaws. People might judge. Or worse, they may reject you. Perfectionism is the armor you wear to feel safe. But the longer you wear it, the heavier it gets. You become afraid of rest, afraid of slowing down, afraid of showing up messy, human, honest. And that fear feeds the panic. The quiet panic that says, I can't make a mistake or I'll lose everything. But what if that's not true? What if people connect with your flaws more than your polish? What if your mistakes don't make you unlovable? What if your humanness is the exact thing that makes you enough? Because real connection doesn't come from perfection. It comes from vulnerability, and vulnerability requires imperfection. Think about the people you love most. Are they perfect? Or Are they honest? Are they flawless? Or are they brave enough to show up anyway? Chances are, it's their humanness you love. So why do you think you have to be different? Why do you think you need to be perfect in order to be worthy? Here's the truth. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to be messy. You're allowed to not have it all together. And even in your imperfection, you are worthy of love. Perfection is not a prerequisite for belonging. It never was. The voice that says, "Not good enough yet," is not your truth. It's a defense mechanism, a scar, a ghost, a story you learned to survive. But you don't have to believe it forever. You can rewrite it, not by doing more, but by doing something radical, by letting yourself be unfinished, flawed, fully human, and fully worthy. Start small. Let someone see the real you. Don't over-edit the message. Wear the outfit that's comfortable, not curated. Take the risk. Make the mistake. Laugh about it. And notice something. The world doesn't end. You don't disappear. You survive. And slowly, you heal. Imposter syndrome, belonging while doubting. You made it. You're in the room you once dreamed of. The opportunity, the stage, the seat at the table. People congratulate you, smile at you, believe in you. But inside your head, it's chaos. They are wrong about me. I don't belong here. It's only a matter of time before they figure it out. This is imposter syndrome, the unsettling, persistent fear that your success is a fluke, that you somehow tricked everyone, that you don't deserve your place. And it's more common than you think. You could be brilliant, capable, and deeply experienced, and still feel like a fraud. Not because you're fooling anyone, but because the voice in your head whispers, you are not enough, not smart enough, not talented enough, not experienced enough, not enough. Imposter syndrome doesn't care about facts. It doesn't care about evidence. You could have a resume a mile long, but it only takes one moment of doubt to fall back into that spiral. And the worst part? You hide it. Because if you admit you feel like a fraud, you worry others will believe it too. So you keep performing, smiling, nodding, over-preparing, over-delivering, just to stay ahead of the fear. Maybe it started early. Maybe you grew up in an environment where achievement was everything. Or maybe you were the first in your family, your community, your culture to reach certain heights. You entered rooms where no one looked like you. You were praised for being exceptional. But that praise came with pressure. The pressure to never slip, to represent something bigger than yourself, to prove that you deserve to be there. And slowly, that pressure turned into panic. Imposter syndrome thrives in silence. It feeds on isolation because when no one talks about it, you assume you're the only one. But here's the irony. The more capable and self-aware you are, the more likely you are to feel like an imposter. Because you see how much there is to learn. You recognize your own blind spots. You understand nuance. Meanwhile, those who are less competent often feel no doubt at all. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less someone knows, the more confident they often appear. So your doubt? It's not proof you're a fraud. It might be proof you're growing. Still, the feeling hurts. You want to believe in yourself. You want to feel confident. You want to breathe in a room without wondering if you're just lucky. But the doubt lingers, especially when the world tells you, fake it till you make it. But what if you don't want to fake it anymore? What if the answer isn't pretending to be confident, but learning how to hold space for your doubt without letting it define you? What if you could say, yes, I feel like an imposter sometimes, and that doesn't mean I don't belong. Because feeling unsure doesn't mean you're incapable. It means you care. It means you're stretching, expanding, learning, and that is courage. You don't have to feel confident to take up space. You don't need to have all the answers to belong in the room. Your presence is not a mistake. Your voice is not an accident. Your path is not a fluke. You're not here by luck. You're here because you walked through fire, made hard choices, survived doubt, and kept showing up. That's not fraudulence. That's strength. Next time you hear the voice say, you don't belong here, try this. Pause, breathe, place your hand on your chest and answer back. You're scared, I know, but we are not leaving. Because belonging isn't about being perfect. It's about being present and staying even when the fear says run. Never enough in relationships, the people pleaser's wound. You said yes again, even though you were tired, even though you didn't want to, even though something in your body whispered no. But you smiled, you showed up, you gave more of yourself again. Because deep down, a part of you is terrified of what would happen if you didn't. Welcome to the world of the people pleaser. It sounds harmless, even kind. A people pleaser, a helper, a peacemaker. But underneath the surface is a deep ache. If I don't make everyone happy, I'll be abandoned. If I'm not useful, I won't be loved. If I have needs, I'll be too much. This isn't kindness, it's survival. Maybe you learned early on that love had to be earned, that being good meant putting others first, that saying no meant rejection, that conflict was dangerous. So you adapted. You became the supportive friend, the easy partner, the one who always listened, always helped, always said, I'm fine, even when you weren't, especially when you weren't. You may not even know what you truly want anymore because your attention is always out there, reading the room, anticipating needs, fixing problems before they are spoken. You become so good at tending to everyone else that no one notices you're slowly disappearing. You give and give, but no matter how much you do, it never feels like enough because you're not being loved for who you are. You're being loved for what you provide. And the worst part? You fear that if you stopped giving, that love would stop too. This is the wound of conditional love. When your sense of self becomes tied to your usefulness, when love feels earned, not given, when receiving care feels uncomfortable, even shameful, because somewhere along the way, you internalized this. My needs don't matter. My value is in how much I sacrifice. If I'm not pleasing, I'm a burden. But that's not love. That's a performance. And it leaves you feeling lonely, even in a crowded room. So, how do you begin to heal? You start by noticing the small betrayals, the tiny ways you abandon yourself every day. Saying yes when you mean no, apologizing when you've done nothing wrong, dimming your light so others can shine, giving more than you can afford emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And you ask, what would it look like to choose me today? At first, you'll feel wrong, selfish, harsh, unfamiliar, because you've spent a lifetime being the caretaker. Being cared for feels terrifying. But slowly you can learn that love doesn't require sacrifice, that saying no is not unkind, that boundaries are not walls, they are invitations to truth, that real love includes you too. You're not too much, you're not a burden. You're not only lovable when you're useful, you're worthy when you're soft, when you're tired, when you need help, when you disappoint someone, when you say no. Because your worth is not in what you do for others, it's in who you are, even when you stop trying. The people who love you only when you shrink are not your people. The love that only exists when you perform is not your home. You deserve a life where your truth is safe, where your no is honored, where your rest is respected, where your presence, not your performance, is enough. You don't have to earn your place in someone's heart. You don't have to disappear to be loved. Let yourself be seen. Let yourself be known. Let yourself be held, messy, real, and whole. Because you're not here to be consumed. You're here to be cherished. Cultural myths, the lies we inherit about worth. Every culture tells stories, not just bedtime stories or fairy tales, but deeper myths. Stories about what makes a person valuable. We rarely question them because they are everywhere, on billboards, in classrooms, in religious texts, in our parents' words, in the way people look at us when we succeed or when we fall. And over time, these myths burrow into us, shaping how we move, how we speak, how we measure our lives. Some cultures worship success. They say, you are what you achieve. And if you don't achieve, you don't matter. Others worship beauty. You are how you look. Thin enough, young enough, smooth enough. Some value obedience. You are how well you follow the rules. Stay quiet. Don't question. Fit the mold. Others praise sacrifice. The more you suffer for others, the holier you are. Give everything, need nothing. These myths might wear different clothes depending on where you're from, how you were raised, what language you speak. But the core message is often the same. You are not enough until you lose weight, until you make money, until you get married, until you have children, until you reach enlightenment, until you silence your desire, until you prove yourself. And that word, until, becomes a trap, a treadmill with no off switch. We rarely ask who benefits from these stories, who gains when you always feel behind, when you keep consuming, fixing, striving. The beauty industry thrives when you hate your reflection. The productivity industry thrives when you never rest. The self-help industry thrives when you feel broken. The media thrives when you feel like you're missing out. And culture, if left unquestioned, becomes a machine that feeds on your self-doubt. But here's the thing about myths. They can be rewritten. Every culture evolves. Every narrative can shift. But first, you have to notice them. The silence after the panic. You've made it, not to the end of a video, but to a place most people avoid. The quiet. The part after the tears, after the panic, after the endless striving. You are here. Still. And that alone is a kind of miracle. This journey hasn't been about being better or finally reaching some invisible bar labeled enough. It's been about waking up from a dream where your worth had to be proven, where perfection was survival, where rest was earned, where being loved meant being useful. You lived in that dream for a long time. We all did. But something inside you stirred. A quiet rebellion. A whisper that said, there must be more than this. And that whisper, it was the beginning of truth. You've traced the roots back through childhood, through culture, through burnout, through beliefs that never belonged to you. You've faced the fear that says, if I stop performing, I'll disappear. And you've survived it. You are still here, breathing, listening, becoming. And now comes the hardest part. The part no one else can do for you. The quiet daily choice to live differently. To say no to panic when it arrives. To say yes to slowness. To let yourself be loved, flawed, messy, unfinished. To believe without needing proof that your existence matters. This isn't a one-time epiphany. It's a rhythm, a relearning, a return. And some days you'll forget. That's okay. That's part of the practice. And so, if no one told you this today, let me be the one. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not failing at life. You are remembering, unlearning, reclaiming. You are showing up for yourself in ways that your past never taught you how. And that is bravery. Not the loud kind. Not the kind they make movies about. But the quiet kind. The midnight kind. The kind that says, I'm tired, but I'm not giving up on myself. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You don't have to be healed to be worthy. You don't have to be extraordinary to be enough. You are already enough. Now, in this breath, in this body, in this moment, you don't have to chase it anymore. So tonight, when you turn off the lights and your thoughts start to whisper and the panic tries to sneak back in, pause. Place your hand over your heart and remind yourself, I'm not a machine. I'm not a product. I am a person, a soul, a miracle. And I don't need to do anything more to deserve love, to deserve peace, to simply exist. You are not what you produce. You are not what you prove. You are who you are. And that is everything. Thank you for walking with me through the quiet. Thank you for choosing yourself. Thank you for remembering what the world made you forget. You've always been enough. Now, let that truth echo in the silence and let it change everything.